Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Mary Preenon, author of I'm Lazy and I Love to Eat. And I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Phat Chat, the show that talks about healthy lifestyles. And today I have a really exciting guest. We're going to learn all about Transcendental Meditation, something we really need in today's climate. My guest today is Melody Katz. Hi, Melody. Melody's coming to us from Florida, where it's nice and sunny. Unlike New York, where it's freezing cold. But Melody she's been a certified teacher of Transcendental Meditation program since 1974. And for the past 46 years, she has worked in both teaching and management capacities for the TM organization in the US and around the world. Her work has included teaching some 1,500 individuals and the TM centers, corporations, healthcare facilities, and schools. She currently serves as co-director of communications, helping to oversee and develop programs for more than 160 Transcendental Meditation centers in the US. And she has, for the past 15 years, co-directed the TM Center in Westchester County, in Katona, as a matter of fact, if you're from Westchester, and that's where I met Melody, I guess probably it's got to be 4 or 5 years ago when I first learned TM. And I got to tell you, it's such a wonderful topic, and I think very timely. And Melody, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And I was saying, I love your the background that you've chosen. It's very pretty. So a lot of people, first question out of the ballpark, what is TM? What is it?
Usually the best way to describe TM is to first say what it's not. It's not a religion. It's not a philosophy. It's not a way of life. It's a very simple, natural technique. Practice 20 minutes twice a day for an adult, sitting comfortably, eyes closed. You wouldn't even notice a person's doing anything. They just look like they were sitting there resting. It's done internally, and you just sit comfortably practicing this technique. And 20 minutes later, you come out and enjoy your life more. So we think of TM as a preparation for activity. No,
go ahead. I was going to say, you've been doing this a very long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. Yeah.
And you still make the time to do it every day, 20 minutes in the morning and evening. Yeah. How did you get involved with this, Melody?
I was quite young. I was 14 at the time, and I had a counselor at a summer camp that I went to in Lake of the Ozarks. I grew up in the Midwest, and there was something about him that was very special. He had a quality. He was cooler than everybody else, calmer in unusual circumstances. He was the counselor, not yelling at the kids, and always seeming to be enjoying and always seeming to be in control. And he said it was due to his practice of Transcendental Meditation. I went back home. I was in 9th grade at the time, going into 9th grade, and there were no TM centers in St. Louis at the time. No one had become a teacher and opened a center. And then in the spring of my 9th grade school year, I learned Transcendental Meditation. Directly after it, my parents also learned, and the rest of my family. I had 2 brothers who had learned before me. And I just found I had a little bit of an edge on everybody around me. And it carried me through my high school years in a very easy way. And when I graduated from high school, I went and became a teacher of Transcendental Meditation.
Wow.
So I started at a very young age. It's not the typical story.
And Transcendental Meditation has a long, long history, dating back to, is it thousands of years? Or maybe you can just give us a little idea of where it came from.
It comes from a tradition called the Vedic tradition, Vedic. The word literally means knowledge. And the Vedic tradition is the same tradition that yoga comes from. Ayurveda, the traditional science, natural healthcare system, which is becoming very popular these days. There's Vedic music, there's Vedic architecture. So it's really a complete system of knowledge. But at its core is this one process of how do we take the mind from a more active level to a more silent level, to a deeper level? How do we transcend the active mind? That's why it's called Transcendental Meditation. And typically, in the old days, this technique goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years, as long as there's recorded history. And it's thought to be the oldest culture in the world, the oldest tradition of knowledge. And it's traditionally taught where students would go to an ashram, study with a teacher for years, and then learn the technique. And what happened is it had been passed down teacher to student for thousands of years, pretty much just in this little circle in India. And in the late 50s, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who many of you know is the Maharishi, I'm sure especially people from our generation
Right.
have seen those pictures of Maharishi. He was on Merv Griffin in the early days and very popular in his day. And what he did is he repackaged that knowledge in a way that people like myself could teach it. So now it's taught in a course over a 4-day period, about an hour and a half each day over 4 days. And so he made it easy to learn. And he had started a training program in the late 60s where he started to teach Westerners how to teach other people. And from that, the organization spread. So we've been around now. The organization's been around, established as a 501c3, an educational organization, nonprofit, for about 60 years in the US.
And I like what you said, that it's easy to learn, because I think a lot of people may be apprehensive when they hear, oh, I don't know whether I can meditate. I don't have the patience. It's not my makeup. But explain like how easy it is.
Well, I have a memory of when you came to learn, you had that same attitude.
I did.
That you had tried other forms.
For many years, I was very skeptical. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's really the beauty of TM, is the ease of the practice. And the reason is because it's based on a beautiful principle, which is that the nature of our mind is to go where it's most charming. So let's say we're sitting here chatting, but the door opens and somebody's playing your favorite song. Where's your mind go?
Right.
It goes to the music. Or you're sitting in a restaurant and you're having a kind of boring conversation with someone, and the person behind you at a table is starting to whisper about your best friend. You're going to totally eavesdrop. Right. You're not going to continue listening to the other person. So our minds are constructed that they go to the place that's more charming. And the principle behind TM is that the deeper levels of the mind are more charming than the surface levels. So here we are, we're thinking all the time, I got to do this, I have to do this, I have to do that. That's the surface of the mind, like the surface of the ocean. It's very wavy and choppy on top. But the depth of the ocean is very silent. So what happens in TM is we give you a sound that you use, and the sound leaves the mind undirected. And if your mind is undirected, where will it go? It'll take that inward direction because it's more charming. So that's the principle behind it. So it involves no concentration, no contemplation. So we teach kids who have ADHD who are ready to jump out of their seats. And you know what? They do it just fine.
Wow.
Because the mind is allowed to follow its natural tendency. So, and that's one of the greatest strengths of TM. It's also, because it is natural, it's very holistic in its benefits. It's not like we say, oh, Mary, do this for anxiety or do this for hypertension. But because it's a completely natural technique, your mind and body gain what it can from that natural state of rest in a very spontaneous, natural way.
And it's not, and I know that, you've said this in many of your workshops before, it's not, you're not sleeping, but you're not fully
Right.
awake too? You're somewhere in between.
Um, it's actually not even somewhere in between. There's basically, we're used to experiencing three states of consciousness. There's waking, which we are to some degree right now, and then there's dreaming, and then there's sleeping. And all three of those have very specific neuro parameters. Like, you could be hooked up to an EEG machine and someone could be looking at your electrodes, your electrical activity of your brain. And as they're watching it, they could say, oh, you know what? Mary's starting to fall asleep right now. Or, you know what? Mary's starting to dream. Oh, I think she's starting to wake up. Because our brains function in a certain way that corresponds to each state of consciousness, each state of alertness.
Mm.
Like that, when you practice TM, it's actually different from waking, dreaming, or sleeping. Because what's going on is while you're doing transcendental meditation, your body's very deeply rested, but your mind is still alert. So
Mm.
it's been hypothesized to actually be a fourth major state of consciousness, a hypometabolic state, where the mind, or a state of restful alertness. Mind and body are very restful, but you're still alert.
And there's been a lot of studies about TM and how it's been beneficial, not only for, making you less anxious and calming you down, but also some physiological benefits as well.
Yes. So on every level, because what happens is when you're practicing TM, when the mind gets quiet, the body gets quiet. So as soon as you begin the technique, your brain becomes very orderly, which means usually different parts of the brain function in different ways. One is firing here, one's firing there. But when you're practicing TM, what starts to happen is what they call global EEG coherence, which means global. The entire brain starts to function in the same pattern. And it's in the 8 to 10 cycles, which is the low alpha range, which is a very restfully alert range of activity of the brain. They start to function together. So it's a little like if you were ever at a symphony and you come in the beginning and everybody's starting to warm up. It
Mhm.
actually, if you're listening, it's horrible. You want to put your fingers in your ear. But the conductor comes in and goes like that, and all of a sudden it's music. That's
Right.
what happens when you're meditating. Before you close the eyes, the brain's firing in all these ways. You sit down, you begin to think, to do the technique, and the brain starts to function in this beautiful, orderly, coherent way. But it's not just in the brain, though. The body also starts to become very quiet.
Mhm.
So the metabolic rate starts to become lower, which means your oxygen consumption becomes less. And it drops as much as it does in the deepest point of a full night's sleep, but within that 20-minute period. So your body gains this tremendous rest, which in many ways is almost deeper and more restorative than sleep in
Mhm.
different ways. So you come out from those 20 minutes feeling refreshed, invigorated, energized. But because that rest is of such a profound quality, it starts to get rid of deep rooted stress that's been sitting in the body for a long time. A good night's sleep gets rid of surface fatigue. The deep rest of TM gets rid of these deeper knots of stress. They start to unwind, they start to move out, which is why afterwards, doctors have found, researchers have found that a lot of diseases, any of those related to stress, which the majority of disease is related
Right.
to stress, we see benefits. We start to see changes. The
Mhm.
American Heart Association has stated that transcendental meditation is the only mental technique that they found that actually helps to lower blood pressure. There's 8 research studies showing TM affects insomnia, helps us to
Mhm.
fall asleep faster, stay asleep more fully. I think actually, Mary, you just mentioned
I
before we started recording. Do you want to say what we were talking about?
Well,
Um,
and I've been practicing for say 4 or 5 years, but working full time and you just sometimes you forget and you fall off the wagon, which is great for anybody who takes TM because the TM centers are open. You can go back anytime, and we've also been doing it now with the virus. It's been online, so it's great. So you have no excuse now. but I had kind of fallen off the wagon again, started again, and I noticed just my sleep. I've been getting much better sleep. I'm less stressed, able to deal with people without, going, oh, what are you crazy? You know, um, it does make a big difference. And that's what I was going to ask you, after so many years with you doing this, how has it really changed your life?
Well, it's a little bit hard to know, given the fact that I started when I was
Yeah,
14.
true, right?
There is some evolution that just takes place with life itself. So it's hard to know that. But the real goal of TM is not just to get rid of the stress and not just to be able to sleep better and be more efficient at what you do and things like that. The real goal is to live what in Vedic culture was called enlightenment. And it's a more popular word these days, this concept of nirvana, living our full potential,
Mhm.
using 100% of our brain. And what I've noticed just over all these 40 some odd years is that there's a sense of continual progress, that you feel like each day you're a little bit just more of yourself,
Mhm.
more experiencing that inner silence, that inner self awareness, that inner bliss, that inner happiness, along with everything you do.
Mhm.
Because we want to be successful in life, but we also want to enjoy the whole process of gaining success. We want it there's the concept of be here now, be in the now. If your mind is too busy, you don't even hear what the person's saying to you. But if
Right.
your mind is very quiet, not only do you hear them, you find yourself appreciating them. You find yourself looking at them and saying, wow, her eyes are so beautiful today. And isn't she so sweet? And feeling not just listening, but loving.
Mhm.
It's like the more you are awake, the more you're alert, the more fulfilled you are inside, the more you find you appreciate, you love, you desire to give, to support. You don't really need the environment to fill you up. Your any sense of greed or jealousy or competition, everything, you start to see the environment more as yourself. You
Mhm.
start to see the underlying unity that is there. I mean, we are all just pulsations of some unified cosmic field, of energy and intelligence. And it's one thing to say that, to philosophize about it. But as your experience continues to grow as you meditate, you begin, so many of my students who have been meditating for some length of time talk about how they have this feeling. Mershi, the founder of Transcendental Meditation, described it as enlightenment as a feeling that mother is at home. That
Oh,
when you're a child and
right.
if your mom is in the house, you
Yeah.
could be up in the attic but you feel so secure inside. But
Mhm.
when she's out of the house and you're just waiting for her to call home, but you have your cell phone, you could call her if you need to, you still feel a little uneasy inside. And when she comes home, you feel this subtle relief. That feeling is the feeling an enlightened person feels all the time.
I like
So
that
as
description. That's very, yeah, that's great.
and so that's the first level of enlightenment that starts to really grow, is that continual feeling of comfort wherever you are, even in the most unusual, what someone else would have called stressful, for
Mhm.
you is no longer stressful. And I'm sure you've had this experience when you're rested. It's like what would have been a stressful situation, that person at work who drives you nuts, all
Mhm.
of a sudden you find yourself sort of adoring them and laughing at those things as opposed to being stressed out about them.
Right.
Parents will often tell us that their children, the things that used to drive them crazy about their kids, now make them laugh. But on a day when they're
Right.
tired, forget it. It's like, and so that's kind of the first thing you notice, is that quality of feeling more and more at home. And after some time, what you start to notice even more of is a sense of unity, a sense of connection to the environment more. And there's another beautiful quote from the Vedic tradition, which goes, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. And what it means is the whole world is my family. And that is really the way an enlightened person sees the world.
Mhm.
That feel that connection. And I'm sure in your 4 or 5 years of meditation, that feeling has been growing, that you find yourself those things that divide us, that tribalize us, that make us feel that sense of division, start to melt away. You see that underlying feeling of the person, and you start to feel more and more connected. And when you feel more connected, your behavior changes. You're kinder, you're more loving, you're more patient. So most people start TM for their own personal desires. They want to feel less anxious. They want to be able to focus more. They want to do better at work. But the reality is, it's really a means for helping to create a more peaceful world. Because if you're peaceful within yourself, you radiate that to the environment. But that was a long answer.
No, that's fine. That's great. That's great. I wanted to just, we have a few minutes left, and we're going to share, I'm going to share my screen. We have a clip this is from the TM website. This is from Good Morning America, and this is about TM. So we'll just play this. It's only a little over a minute, and really, really interesting. Oh.
I know firsthand, George does too, the benefits of meditation. My meditation mentor, Bob Roth, explains why it's a valuable tool to have in your survival kit.
The mind settles down and the brain wakes up. Your body gains a state of rest deeper than sleep. It improves serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter for happiness. So it really reboots the system.
Bob Roth is a leading practitioner in Transcendental Meditation, who I've turned to for my own TM practice over the years. Not sure how to get started? Well, we discussed it in 2016. I think like a lot of people, Bob, that I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't quiet my mind. And you said to me, of course you can't.
Nobody can.
Nobody can. And so once you say that and you realize, just recognize the thought and push it out. And if it comes back in,
Let it go.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Right. For healthcare workers like Dr. Kathy Wong, meditation can be a powerful tool.
My TM practice helps to decrease the anxiety, cut through the noise, and helps me gain clarity.
And this morning, Bob's sharing a new initiative to benefit so many.
So the David Lynch Foundation is launching today, Heal the Healers Now, to bring transcendental meditation to all the healthcare heroes who are on the front line.
That is something else. We're talking to doctors, nurses, custodians, everyone who works in healthcare, everyone at the hospital, on the front lines of the battle against this terrible virus. Bob believes they are suffering from PTSD the same way soldiers on the battlefield. And so TM is used widely in VA hospitals because it helps veterans heal from trauma. And now this new program is going to bring meditation to the medical heroes who are in a real life and death battle. And for more info, there's a website, healthehealersnow.org.
Okay, well, that was really interesting, and that's kind of everything that we've been talking about in a nutshell. And I think we're actually coming to the end of our show, and this went so quickly because it's just so interesting. Melody and we'll put up in the credits as we end the show, but is there a website where people can find more information about TM?
Yeah. The best place to go is a simple website called tm.org. We're a nonprofit, which always means it ends with .org. So tm.org. And there you can put in your zip code and they'll find the closest center near you. And also there's videos you can watch, a lot of information.
Great. Well, Melody, this has been really educational, informational, and great to catch up with you. I haven't seen you in a while, and I hope you enjoy. You've moved to Florida now, correct?
Yeah.
From Westchester County to sunny Florida, and good luck to you down there. And I hope you enjoy it. You should now. You should be glad you're not up here because we're going down to the single digits.
I appreciate the sun and the beach every day.
Oh, good for you. Melody Phats from Transcendental Meditation. And thank you again for being my guest on Phat Chat. I'm Mary Preenon, author of I'm Lazy and I Love to Eat. And I will see all of you next week. Thanks for joining us.